Good morning. Do you like worms? That may seem a curious opening gambit, and I'm prepared to bet that in general the answer is no. I live in the country, and I admit that worms are not my favourite creatures. They tend to get into places where they shouldn't. And during dinner, I remember finding half a worm in my plate of salad. What really upset me was that I couldn't find the other half. And yet there are some people who feel that they actually welcome worms. Fishermen, of course. I don't go fishing. Candidly, my sympathy is entirely with the fish. Were I swimming peacefully along, I'd hate to be yanked out on the end of a bent pin, and I doubt whether a plaice or a mackerel enjoys it either. But if you do fish, you need worms. And if you can't find any, how about going to a worm farm? If you didn't know there were such things, I can assure you that there are. One worm farm proprietor was Mrs. Anne Hill.
It's really extremely fascinating once you get used to it. I used to be scared stiff of worms, and I still am if I find them in the wrong place.
What do you mean exactly by the wrong place?
In my pockets, down my neck, in my boots, all sorts of odd places.
Where are they kept here on the farm as we look around? I can't see any worms.
No, well, you don't see worms except at night. They only come up in the dark. They're mainly in boxes and some outside heaps. They're all kept under special controlled conditions.
How many are there here at this moment?
About 10 million outside, and I hope at least double that number inside.
And they are worth about, what, £50,000?
If you can produce them in the right condition, at the right time, and the right size.
Now, you export them all over the world, don't you?
Yes.
What's the biggest order you've had?
We had an order for 250 million from Russia, which we had to turn down because we were in our infancy then, and we simply couldn't supply in that number.
I wonder if the Russians got their worms from elsewhere, Afghanistan, perhaps? That's all very well. At least the worms keep underground unless they're wanted, and though they may be slimy, there are worse things. Maggots, for example. Yes, in case you're starting to wonder, there are maggot breeders too, such as Mr. B. Wright. And if you'd like to know more, Mr. Wright will explain in great detail.
Well, it's an involved process, really, but basically it amounts to putting trays of meat daily into fly houses where we keep captive flies, taking it out every day and feeding it up for another week or so, and till we get the end product, the maggot.
This sounds a pretty unhealthy sort of job.
Well, it perhaps does sound unhealthy, but I've never seen an unhealthy maggot breeder yet.
I do hope you're enjoying your breakfast. Well, enough of that, I think. What about other kinds of hobbies? What are the usual hobbies? Stamps, matchbox labels, anything you like. I once came across a society which concentrated on collecting toilet paper, in mint condition only, I understand. They call themselves the Bumpological Society, and for all I know, they may still exist. But there are also people who find things lying around. I mean, of course, things that are genuinely abandoned and not things that are owned by somebody else. Now and then, one could make a startling discovery. Listen. Do you know what that was? Well, it was an echo from the Bronze Age, a Swedish horn. Obviously, it was found somewhere by somebody not so very long ago. Listen to it again. Those with perfect pitch. What note was that? I don't know where that Swedish horn was dug up, but it was probably by an official archaeologist. But one needn't be an archaeologist to do some harmless collecting. Mind you, amateur archaeologists have a very bad name, justifiably so, because they tend to blunder in and destroy vital evidence before an expert can interfere. And I hasten to add that if you are near such a site, don't meddle without supervision. But collecting things from the beach is quite another matter. Beachcombing. Doesn't it conjure up pictures of the South Seas, dusky mavens, coral reefs, blue skies? It does to me at any rate. But one needn't go as far as Tahiti or the Gilbert and Ellice Islands to be a beachcomber. Colonel James Langley did it in Suffolk.
In perfect condition,
after long, prolonged gales, one must be on the beach before the sun gets up, and there's pretty good competition. One's quite ruthless about it. It's first come, first served, and I usually go down when it's still dark, so that I'm ready to start the moment it's light enough to see things.
But you mean to say that there'll be other people down on the beach at the same time?
There's quite a number of people. I carry field glasses not only to one bit of 6 ounces, which I'm told is worth 7 or 8 pounds now.
Whereabouts on the beach do you find amber?
On the tide line. It's when you find coal, which we get a great deal here, you hope to find amber. They both bump along the bottom of the sea and are left by the receding tide.
Is the coal worth anything to you?
Yes, I think you could heat a house. You could get almost always 100 or 2 if you wanted it, but it's rather a job to get off. One gets a lot of fruit, oranges, grapefruit.
Well, that won't be much good.
Well, they're all fit to eat, unless the seagulls have had a go at them first. And then we find tinned food. One has to be a bit careful there to make certain the tin hasn't got a small hole in it and it's gone rotten, but normally it's eatable.
Do you really eat anything that you find in the sea?
Yes, I eat anything. So far I've only had one trouble once, was when I drank some water. We pick up tins of water that had been thrown out of lifeboats, I suppose, and I drank a tin one day, and I must say I didn't feel very well for 24 hours. It made my wife very angry. But apart from that, everything's been all right. Some years ago, I was very lucky. We found some cigarettes, tins of cigarettes, and they were perfectly all right, and tobacco, which smoked all right. Well, I think, on the whole, we haven't had any real trouble.
I must admit that if I found anything which looked edible on a beach, I would strongly advise against trying it, particularly nowadays when pollution is rife. No, don't do it. At least beachcombing is quiet, for most of the time anyway. Not all occupations are as placid. How about knocking down houses? I agree that some modern houses can be demolished simply by leaning against them, but older houses are much tougher, and they take a great deal of removing. It's meant to be a job for men, and one can picture a house demolisher as a male chauvinist pig. I was quite surprised to find that there are ladies involved too. What about Mrs. M. Rogers, for example?
We start by taking the doors off and the roof so the rain can come in, and then we just go on from there. We take floorboards and we find out what safest way is to do it next, and we just carry on.
This is heavy work. It's usually regarded as man-type work. How do you get on with it?
Well, I get on fine with it because, well, we all muck in together and we all help one another, and I don't think it is man work. I think anyone can do it. I mean, all it needs is a bit of care and a bit of knowledge, and then you know where you're going from there.
Do you need strength to do it?
No, not really. If you've got the right tools, and it's quite easy as long as you've got the right tools for any job. It's quite easy to get on and do it.
Are there any moments in your demolition career that make you smile now, looking back on?
Oh, yes, we've done some houses for the Poor Council down at Poole last year, and I went into one of the houses to take the floorboards up, and in the old houses there, instead of using proper cut timber, they used the branches of trees, and I took a floorboard up, and a lot of crawly stuff jumped off out of me, and it must have been where the branches had grown. And, I look back and grin on it, and other times when we've taken some floorboards up, or there's been a hole at the bottom of the stairs, and a bit of paper's gone over it, and no one's known, and you've walked on it and gone clean through, and we have quite some fun.
Quite risky. Falling into holes at the bottom of partly demolished staircases isn't my idea of fun. There are, though, some people who positively thrive on danger, and again, it's not a male preserve. Do you fancy earning a living by riding on a wall of death? I don't. But Yvonne Stagg did, and made up her mind to do just that, rather than stagnate in an office.
I said, oh, how marvellous, you've got a wall of death. Can I have a go? So he said, all right, come over and I'll take you on the handlebars. He took me up on the handlebars, and I thought it was so fantastic, so wonderful, that I just quit my office job and just hung around the wall every day, just getting rides on the handlebars. But finally I managed to ride in the end. And then everyone seemed to think I was a worthwhile proposition. First ride I took, the bike just leapt in the air and I opened the throttle for a force. Shot straight up the wall. And when I got about a quarter of the way up the wall, the bike just sort of came off the wall and gone up it straight. You with it? Yes, me too. I was lying on the ground and I was swearing.
It makes you feel quite breathless. I wouldn't want to be a wall of death rider. I'd much rather be a pantomime cat. Jerry Lee is such a cat.
I was a bundle of fun. I used to come on, rush here, there, play with a ball of wool, go between the comedian's legs, upset the dame, you know.
Are the skins very uncomfortable, very hot, very prickly?
Well, they're not prickly. Of course, they're made of wool. They're more like a set of combs, you know, and the wool, of course, is threaded in between like you would make a carpet. But they are very, very hot indeed.
Where do you get a good cat skin?
Well, you can have them made. In fact, years ago, if you had them made, they were very dear. They were about £50. But most of us make our own. In fact, I can make my own now.
What about all the gadgets, the eye blinking and so on, and the mask?
Yeah, well, actually, I wore what they call a half mask. If you wear a full mask, it's all right, but there's no animation. The art of a cat is the animation. And if you use just a half mask, you lose your own jaw, your face, you know, your eyes.
Yeah.
In fact, they tell me I don't even need a mask to be a cat.
Yeah. You played Dick Whittington's cat, of course, in pantomime.
Oh, yes, that and Puss in Boots, they're the main, main subjects.
My heart always bleeds for the actor playing the cat in Dick Whittington, when he makes his traditional tour of the theatre and the children mob him and push ice cream inside the mask and all those other little attentions.
Well, actually, it can be very dangerous, because the traditional pantomime cat, of course, he always walks round the circle.
Along
that's right.
The balustrade in front.
Well, on one occasion, I remember the kiddies mobbing me and they pushed me right over the edge. It's a Grand Theatre Bromley a few years ago.
Did you fall onto people?
I was very lucky. I fell on a plump lady, but...
Did she mind?
Well, not really, but it was a bit of a shock,
Yeah.
Quite entertaining, and the audience loves it. After all, they wouldn't want to hurt Jerry V's felines, would they? Personally, I've never played a cat. My usual role in the local Chelsea pantomime is that of the Demon King. Alas, I missed out this year because I was abroad. But of all the hobbies of recent years, the one which began a real craze was started by Dr. Moore. No, not me. Dr. Barbara Moore. Do you remember her? The marathon walker. She trotted happily from John O'Groats to Land's End, and her progress attracted a great deal of attention. At the finish of her walk, she was given quite a heroine's welcome.
There's a nest of people, I would say over 3,000, 4,000 here. One solid nest outside this hotel. The remotest, most isolated hotel in Britain. They've never seen anything like this before here. Never. Been moving forward to the floodlights of all the cameras, balloons going up, terrific cheer. Welcome, Dr. Babbs, is the sign. Here we go. Going into the hotel, which is being carried, and I wouldn't say carried, she's going in, walking into the hotel. Most unfair say she's being carried. She's been pushed in for this vast crowd. She is indeed a most remarkable woman.
Bravo, Dr. Moore. Would that all other hobbies and occupations were as healthy and fun-making as that. Goodbye.
Patrick Moore. In just over 5 minutes, Richard Baker will be starting the week, and here he is now.
Good morning. The birth of the world's first